Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Chow with Lau, and today we're doing another Chinese restaurant classic, Kung Po beef. Now what's not to love about this dish? Lovely tender beef, tanginess, spiciness, garlic, vegetables, chunky vegetables. So let's just dive straight in, let's get on with it. So for Kung Po beef, you're going to need some beef, some veggies. I've got here half a pepper, half a white onion, and 3 mushrooms, some bean sprouts, bit of salt and pepper, as per usual, bit of cornflour, bit of bicarb, light soy sauce, sesame oil, some sugar, some cashew nuts, some ketchup of course, and today's star ingredient is chili bean sauce. Okay, this is something you can get from your local Chinese supermarket, but it's well worth the trip because this stuff is amazing. So without further ado, get your woks ready. Okay guys, so we're going to start with the beef. Today I've got 200 grams of silverside here. This is probably enough for 2 people. Silverside isn't the tenderest of meats. I've kind of got it to demonstrate a thing, and this thing is how to tenderize beef. This is how Chinese people do it. It's called velveting, I believe. It's something I've only learnt over the last couple of weeks. I've done it before, but I've never heard the term before, so this should be quite interesting. The first thing we're going to do is, in all Chinese cooking, when we're dealing with meat, we like to use thin slices because it cooks in the wok when you stir frying it quickly. When we're stir frying, we want speed, we want high heat, we want speed, so that's what we're going to give you. So the first thing we're going to do is get the beef and determine which way the grain is, which is that way. So we're going to go across the grain, and this will help us with our making the meat a little bit more tender naturally. So we're just going to use I don't know if you can see, this is not the tenderest of meats, but that's okay. And we're going to cut really as thin as we can. It helps if we've got a sharp implement to do that with, and that's the kind of size we're going for. What I'm going to do after I've sliced it up is to get rid of all the little bits of fat and sinew, because that makes it even chewier. The beauty of Chinese cooking also is if you cut it thin like this, a little bit of meat goes a long way. And we're all these days we're all kind of conscious of health and not putting on too much weight, and therefore making a little bit of meat going a long way is not only economical, it's healthy, which is definitely a good thing. So yeah, I mean, you can use, if you're a meat lover, if you've got a big appetite, of course you can use more meat. It's totally up to you. This can also be interchanged with chicken, pork, prawns, or you can just do it vegetarian, just add loads more vegetables if you like. So yeah, this is what 200 grams of beef looks like, and it's quite a lot really. And when you add all the vegetables we're going to put into this dish, I think that's plenty, and it makes it a little bit more healthy. And again, with Chinese cooking, it's not meant to be having a whole dish to yourself. It's to share with a plate of vegetables, a steamed fish dish, something like that. So therefore, again, a little bit goes a long way. That's the beauty of Chinese cooking. So the next stage of this recipe is to marinate and tenderize the beef all in one go. Okay, so the first ingredient we're going to use is bicarbonate of soda. Okay, so we're going to get about, for this amount of beef, I would say, not too much, about half a teaspoon of bicarbonate of soda. Okay, and to that we're going to add about half a teaspoon of corn flour, half teaspoon of sugar, a teaspoon of sesame oil, a teaspoon of light soy sauce, and a light sprinkling of salt. And we're going to massage this into our beef. And the bicarb and the corn flour will help tenderize the beef. Some chemical reaction just does that. It just kind of loosens the fibers, I think. I'm not entirely sure of the chemistry, but all I know is it works. And so hopefully, even with this silver side, which is one of the toughest cuts of meat you can get, it'll have a good result. The light soy sauce, the sesame oil, the sugar, that's for flavour. That's a sort of standard classic Chinese marinade for meat. Never ever fails. I recommend it for any dish you get. Sometimes you're doing a dish like this where the sauce of the dish is quite spicy. You think, why would you need that? But then when you bite into the meat, you get another layer of flavour, and that is just makes the dish a little bit more special. That's always really good. Cool. So we're about ready. We're going to leave this for a couple of hours. You could overnight it. Some people actually freeze it, because when you freeze it, it breaks down the fibres even more. So you get, because crystals form, ice crystals form in the fibres of the beef, and that breaks it down even more. So you get even more tender beef. But you know, that's probably a bit too extreme, and you guys probably wanted to make the dish right now. But a couple of hours overnight, that'll do you fine. Right guys, and now for the veg. I've already chopped up the half pepper and the half an onion that we're going to use for this. And what I've tried to do is keep the chunks of vegetables similar size so that they cook evenly in the wok. Because we're cooking at such high temperatures, what we don't want is some vegetables to be cooked and some vegetables to be raw, and then it gets burnt and it's a little bit of a mess. So keep the vegetables roughly the same size, okay? So the next thing I'm going to do is cut up the mushrooms. Again, we're going for a similar size chunk. Mushrooms cook pretty quickly anyway, so it's not normally a problem. Then finally, I'm going to do the garlic. We're just going to finely slice these. So the last veg we're going to put in is the bean sprouts. I've got 100 grams of bean sprouts here. These we will put right at the end because they cook so quickly. A few seconds, probably 30 seconds, and they're done. Any longer than that, they shrivel up to nothing and you won't get the crisp and the crunch that you want from these bean sprouts. So let's get on with our stir fry. This is pretty easy, really. All you got to remember is the basic principles. High heat, keep it moving. Okay, so what we're going to do is pour some oil on. There's probably about a tablespoon in there now, and give it a good swirl around. So we're coating the wok. Whatever you're using, just make sure you've got a nice coverage of oil all over it. And the first thing I'm going to put in is the peppers, the onions, and the garlic. So this should make a nice sizzle. There we go. Okay. Onions should normally go in first when we're stir frying in Chinese cookery, because obviously these are the chunkiest vegetables, so they're going to take that little bit longer to cook, so they go in first. Give it a nice little toss, do a nice mix around, keep it moving like I said. Even on a normal gas hob like this, you can do it. It's just being brave enough to keep the heat on, especially at the beginning, because getting the wok really hot, as soon as you put some food substances in, it starts to cool the wok down. So therefore, if you start with a really high heat, then it doesn't come down as much. So you're still getting the nice seal, the good sear of the vegetables or meat or whatever you're putting in. Okay, so we're getting a little bit of charring on the vegetables now. So what we can do is I'm going to push them to one side and then add a little bit more oil. Let that get up to temperature. And now we're going to add the beef. Now, it's especially important with beef is when we put it in, just layer it on so it's kind of covering the base of the wok and not piling on itself, and then just leaving it. Let the heat sear the beef. If you don't do that, you won't get a nice sear on it, and the beef will go kind of like, it'll be more like it's boiled than it's been stir fried, if you know what I mean. So we'll just leave it there for a good 30 seconds, a minute, and it'll start to just seal and give you, like you're cooking a steak. Okay. You can hear it sizzling around. Don't worry, it won't burn that quick. It'll be fine. And now we can give it a mix. And as you can see, on this side of the beef, we're getting a nice caramelization, and that will improve the texture and the flavour of the meat. And now we can start to stir fry it and mix it with all the rest of the vegetables. Like I said before, we've got a nice high ratio of vegetables to meat, which is basically the Chinese way. You know, you get kind of tricked into thinking that eating Chinese food can be quite unhealthy because a lot of it's deep fried, there's a lot of sugar in a lot of the foods, especially the ones you get from restaurants. But when you break it down like this, you're eating so many vegetables, it's got to be good for you, hasn't it? Okay, at this point I'm going to add mushrooms and keep it going. Maybe add a touch more oil just so we can coat the mushrooms. And as you can see, the meat and the vegetables, they're almost actually done. Doesn't take long at all. And the smell coming off is starting to be really, really nice. Okay. To this, I'm going to add the bean sprouts. Just toss it in so it's nicely mixed. Automatically you'll get a lovely kind of ratio of vegetables and meat. It'll all kind of separate out and even itself out throughout the wok, which is great. Okay, and that is again nearly done. So at this point, I'm going to add the chili bean sauce. Now this can be quite spicy. It's a kind of medium spice on its own, but if you add more, it'll get hotter and hotter. So I'm going to add a big tablespoon and a half. I know that's kind of what I like. Feel free to experiment for yourself. Okay. There's nothing like this sauce. You can smell the chili, you can taste the chilies obviously, and there's a kind of a savouriness to it as well. It's just really, really nice. It adds a lot of colour to it. It adds a lot of colour. So what I'm going to do to that is, I've already pre-boiled the kettle. I'm going to add about 200 mils of water, approximately. And that'll make up our sauce. Let that get up to temperature. And I've got about a tablespoon of sugar. Just keep it bubbling away, and that'll make sure that everything is cooking away nicely. I'm going to add a tiny bit more, a little tiny splash of light soy sauce, not too much, don't want it too salty. And then with the rest of the corn flour, I've made a kind of a paste with water, with cold water, and this we'll use to thicken up the sauce. We'll just add that in. Give it a stir. And that nicely thickens up the sauce. Okay, beautiful. Okay, in goes the ketchup. Chinese staple ingredient, of course. About 2 big tablespoons, I think. That's perfect. Give it a stir in. And the final flourish, we're going to add our 50 grams of cashew nuts right at the end, because obviously we don't want them to get soggy, we want them to stay nice and crunchy. And just gently toss them in. And there we go. Simple as that. So I'm just going to take some out for tasting. Check it out. We've got some nice colour coming from the peppers. What colour pepper you want to put in here is totally up to you. I like the yellow ones because they're sweet. You can use green, red, whatever you like really. It's all lovely. Cool. And there you go, guys. Kung Po beef. Get your taste buds ready. Check this out, guys. That is just delicious. The spiciness, not too hot. It's just kind of warm. You could make it hotter if you put more of that chili bean sauce in. The sweetness from the sugar and the ketchup, but that chili bean sauce comes back again as more of a savoury undertone. Obviously with the marinade we put on the beef, it's beautiful. And that silverside beef is so much more tender than it has any right to be, because it is really a tough piece of meat. If I had the choice, if I was to make a choice to make my life easier, I would have used topside. That is better, and if you wanted to, you could use a sirloin steak or even a fillet steak if you felt extravagant. All of those options are perfect for this dish. Just depends on how much you want to spend and how you want to do it. The vegetables, let's try these. Peppers are still crunchy. Bean sprouts are still crisp. The cashew nuts just add that nice bit of crunch. It's lovely. Honestly, guys, you really should try this. It's so simple. The preparation is pretty easy, really, and the stir fry is one of the easiest ones to do when it comes to Chinese cooking. There's not a lot to it. It's not hard at all. So go for it. Get your woks out. Get cooking. So guys, if you liked what you've seen in this video, and hopefully I've started to inspire you to do these things, because I think a lot of people freaked out by sort of Chinese cooking, thinking it's really difficult. It is not. It's just a case of prep, organisation, and knowing what to do, which is what I'm here to help you with. So go get the ingredients, go cook. It's really easy. You can have fun, you can change around the recipes, you can add stuff to it, you can leave stuff out you don't want. But just go and do it. It's really, really rewarding, and your family will think you're magic. So go for it. So if you really liked what you're seeing, please consider subscribing, give us a like, give us a comment. If there are any recipes you want to see in the future, please leave it in the comment section below and I'll do my best to accommodate. So I'll see you in the next one, guys. Take care.